Hello everybody, and welcome to the Weekend Review, where we have an unscripted chat about all the big bits of news that have occurred over the last week. First up, this week, we've got some very positive news. If you are a fan of the Nintendo Direct format of showcasing games and promoting upcoming titles, then you may or may not be aware of a group called Wholesome Games. They basically emulate the Nintendo Direct formula, call it the Wholesome Games Direct, and showcase a lot of games which are more positive in tone, I guess. What they call is wholesome, so they tend to be not very violent, they tend to be colourful, uplifting, have good representation and all that kind of stuff. It's the kind of positive side of the games industry that they look to showcase. They held one about a year ago, I think, and it went pretty well. They've got another one coming up, which is going to be something massive. It's going to play in June, I believe, and it's going to have 75 games showcased, including a bunch that will release on the day of the Direct. So that's a pretty big deal. That's a lot of indie games to look forward to from that show. And we're not going to be talking about big AAA blockbuster stuff. That's not really the remit of this group. It really is that small developer creating something heartfelt and creative and colourful and bright and wholesome. And we need more of that in the video game industry. There is actually a little bit of controversy about the Wholesome Games Direct thing, and it has to do with the word wholesome. There's a lot of people out there that seem to think by calling a certain category of games wholesome, anything that falls outside of that category must therefore not be wholesome, and therefore there's that kind of judgment implied that if it's not wholesome, it must not be a good game. I think people are being a bit sensitive about that, to be honest. I don't take anything away from Wholesome Games Direct except that they're trying to showcase games which are specifically designed to be happy and pleasant and positive and reinforcing, rather than everything else that I play that's outside of that kind of category being in some way inferior or morally questionable. So yeah, I don't think that we need to get serious about this stuff in the sense we don't need to be critical of these guys for doing something that is fundamentally good for the games industry. We keep talking about wanting to have more creative stuff in the games industry, and we keep talking about how the games industry needs to move away from this obsession with violent loops and try and do some different things. Well, that's really what the Wholesome Games Direct is celebrating, and I think we should support it for that reason. Next up, to move to the big end of the industry, there was some financial results and details that came out over the past week regarding EA and Ubisoft, as well as their respective plans as companies. This came to us from Jeff Keighley, the guy that runs the Video Game Awards and is very much a sycophant for the big end of town. And under a tweet titled "Video Games Evolving and Changing," he's told us that just 26% of EA revenue came from premium game sales in the past year. The rest was from live services, DLC, mobile, and microtransactions. Meanwhile, Ubisoft is shifting away from 3 to 4 premium AAA games a year and plans to launch high-end free-to-play games. This is what these big companies are doing. And Jeff, in his tweet, asks for our thoughts. My thoughts are that none of that is positive for the games industry at all. You know, we talk about microtransactions being a problem, loot boxes being a problem. EA is throwing all its chips in there because it's not making as much money from its premium game sales anymore, probably because it's not producing premium games that are worth buying. Ubisoft, meanwhile, has been moving down this path for quite a while, it's got to be said. Their live services thing where they just support games into infinity and beyond is ridiculous. Like, you could still, they're still actively supporting For Honor, and I don't know anybody that would still be playing that. Apparently there are. Rainbow Six Siege is up to Season Pass 12 or 13 or whatever. Ubisoft is very much committed to making these games that it produces last for a very long time. But the problem with doing that, of course, is the more you put your teams into working on these live service games, the fewer games they're creating, the less creativity we effectively get, because all the energy is being focused into just the one title, which means one story, one artwork, one experience. It would be better for the industry if there was more, but rather than investing more, these publishers are narrowing their focus to make more money out of them, and it's just another reason that I have no patience for the AAA blockbuster industry. I haven't been interested in a game from that space aside from Assassin's Creed Valhalla in the past year. I'm not even sure I'd be interested in the next Assassin's Creed at this point. I do enjoy that series, but just the monetization around it and the way that these games are managed and what these games are trying to do is just exhausting, and I'm done with it. So next up we have two bits of news coming out of Sony which are quite interesting. The first one is the news that the expectation is there that the shortages in the PlayStation 5 will continue on until 2022, so next year. And the reasons for that are largely that Sony's trying to sell this thing in the middle of a pandemic, so logistics and transport and whatever is more complicated than normal, but also that there is a shortage in supply of components that go into these consoles, including the semiconductors, and the reason for that is, of course, the crypto crap that is going on in this world. Everybody's obsessed with mining bitcoins and whatever. Not only is that destroying the planet, but it is also reducing the amount of stock of semiconductors and other parts that go into consoles like the PlayStation 5. So legitimate quality technology that's actually worth owning is being compromised by these idiots that are mining crypto for their own personal profits. Anyway, that is the shortages, so if you do get a PlayStation 5, then good on you. You are one of the lucky ones. If you are waiting for the stock to be easily and readily available, you'll probably be looking into next year before you get your hands on one. Meanwhile, Sony is very much actively developing a lot of games, apparently. They announced that they have 25 games in development right now, and that doesn't mean much. I guess the thing is, until we know what those games are, we are told that quite a few of them are new IPs, but until we know what those games are, then we can't really say anything about it. This is one of those announcements that Sony has made to wave the flag and show how much content they've got in development, and it kind of goes to show what I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks in this segment and on the YouTube channel in general, that in this industry, the stuff doesn't matter, it's just that stuff is getting done. You know, if we cared about what the content was, then we wouldn't get excited over an announcement that there's 25 games in development. We'd actually want to know what those games were before we started to show enthusiasm. So who knows? 25 games is certainly a good number. If they're good games, then that's great, but Sony does have some issues at the moment in terms of its games. They're becoming very formulaic. There's like a Sony formula to these things, and I would imagine that if the bulk of those games, or even a large majority of those games, belong to that formula, by the time they're done with these 25 games, people will start getting sick of it, and Sony will need something else to continue the interest in its products. For the fourth story this week, I want to talk about Project Zero, which is known in America as Fatal Frame, Project Zero for the rest of us. The series turned 21 this year. The original one was released back in 2001. And Koei Tecmo had been out there talking about how they wanted to do something special to celebrate that 20th anniversary. We haven't had a new Project Zero game since the Wii U with Maiden of Blackwater. The series has been traditionally very, very much underutilized. It now belongs to both Nintendo and Koei Tecmo. Nintendo co-owns the license now, and Nintendo just shows no interest in actually doing anything with it. So it is a bit of a series in limbo. It has a very strong fan base, though. So when Koei Tecmo started talking about how they wanted to do something for the 20th anniversary, people were rightfully excited. We now know what that thing is, and it is really just incredibly disappointing. They're making a Pachi slot game. So, you know, that in Japan they've got the gambling machines, which are like a combination of pachinko and slot machines. Pachi slot. That is the 20th anniversary. They've got some clips from the original Project Zero. They've put it into a Pachi slot machine, which you'll only be able to play in Japan, obviously, because those things don't get exported around the world. And that is it. That is their big 20th anniversary for this great horror series. I've written about this horror series at great length. I desperately want Maiden of Blackwater as one of the last Wii U games that is still only on Wii U to make its way to the Nintendo Switch. I beg Nintendo at every opportunity I get. I keep mentioning this game and nothing happens. Project Zero 2 is my favourite horror game of all time. I would love for nothing more than Nintendo and Koei Tecmo to get their act together with this series and do something a little bit more interesting than just a Pachi slot machine. I don't see it happening, unfortunately. Horror is one of those blank spots for Nintendo. It's one of the few these days. Nintendo has been very good about just about everything. They've they've got these great JRPGs, they've got the platformers, they've got story-driven games these days, they've got stuff for children, they've got stuff for adults, they do fan service increasingly. They've just gone and localized the adventure game visual novel things in the Famicom Detective Club for the first time. So Nintendo has its fingers in just about every pie. The one thing it just does not understand, apparently, is the horror genre. Project Zero, I think, was meant to be that horror franchise that Nintendo could make its marquee horror thing, and they've just done nothing with it. And it's really disappointing. So, yeah, Patchy Slot, 20th anniversary celebration with a gambling machine. And so to finish this week, we've got some news regarding the Yakuza series. You may remember last week in the weekend review I mentioned that there was a Judgment game under the way. It was just leaked at the time that I mentioned it and published the weekend review video. It has since been announced and it will be coming out later this year. So there's a new Judgment game coming as a kind of offshoot to the Yakuza series. The news this week, though, is that the Yakuza series itself is going to stay turn-based into the future. So the last Yakuza game was Like a Dragon, and it actually has been the best-selling Yakuza title in the series to date. So obviously they've been very encouraged by the fact that that turn-based combat system resonated with players, and Sega has announced that going forward, at least until the foreseeable future, that series is now going to be a turn-based thing. So that action combat system from the first 6 Yakuza games is being phased out. But what will remain, it's still going to be part of the Judgment series. So Judgment will continue to be the kind of action RPG experience for this combined property, and the turn-based stuff will be the Yakuza series. I think that's a good move for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it does differentiate Judgment, and it's obvious that Sega wants to see Judgment become its own property. To do so, it can't be too similar to Yakuza. So previously, the original Judgment did have a problem that it was too comparable to what they were doing with the Yakuza games at the time. That's not going to be an issue going forwards. People who were fans of the combat system as the main reason that they played these games will naturally gravitate to Judgment. People who enjoy the combat of the turn-based stuff and weren't big fans of the action stuff will now have a Yakuza series to enjoy. They'll be able to continue to play those Yakuza games. And then people who are there for the story stuff and don't necessarily care which way are going to get 2 different properties going forwards. I think this is an excellent way to continue to build the overall franchise for Sega, and yeah, that's a bit of brilliant work there. Alright, so that's everything for this week. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments as always. It'll be good to chat about all this stuff. Have a great weekend, because we are at the end of the week, so as always, I hope you have a wonderful weekend playing lots of games and having lots of fun. And yeah, be sure to stick around for our streams. If you do enjoy my videos, click the like and subscribe buttons. That way you'll see them all as I upload them. If you do enjoy what I'm doing, please consider backing me on Patreon. You can do so for $1 a month, and that supports all the articles I do on digitallydownloaded.net, all the reviews, the podcasts, the video stuff I do here. And on top of all of that, we have a magazine now. That will be published tomorrow, and it will be exclusive to Patreon backers. It's a 48-page magazine full of content that is all original, and it'll be, I hope there's a lot of interesting features in there, articles and stuff, which I hope you'll really enjoy. Alright, thank you very much. We'll see you next time.